folks, welcome to another of one of my colouring tutorials. In this tutorial I'm going to be working from a design from a book by Colouring Book Calf. I've only got one of those their books, and I got a collection. Actually, it's 100 collection of their country designs, and these are like cottages and outdoor scenes and that kind of thing, which I like to try and get some practice in. In this tutorial I'll be using Castle Art premium pencils, but I'm using the 120 set, sorry. So some of the numbers I'll be mentioning, if you haven't got that set you won't have those numbers, but if you have any other set you can still do this tutorial. Just choose similar colours from your own sets of pencils that you want to use. So in this tutorial I'm going to be working on a bucket, a wooden bucket, trying to do some shading with that. So I hope people who are watching this find this useful. This is the design I'm working on, and as I mentioned, this is the book I'm working with. It's a lovely book. It's got lots of nice designs in it. Just give you a quick idea. Indoors, outdoors, a good one for practicing doing scenes. So, and there's winter and spring and summer and autumn scenes as well. So it's a really good one, this book. I decided to do this design I was working on because I like these pigs, are so cute. And this tutorial is going to be how I colour this wooden bucket. So I'm going to be working on this bucket, and I'm going to do the wood first, and I'm working in browns and orange for this wood for the bucket, and I'm using Castle Art 120 pencils. So some of the numbers I'll mention, if you don't have the 120 set you won't have. However, you can use any pencil set at all for this tutorial and just choose similar colours. So I'm using like a light orange, and it's 017 for the Castle Art, a reddish brown, medium brown, 114, and what they call a walnut brown, 117, which is a dark brown, really. So I'm going to try and put in my highlights first, as I always start with my highlights. And throughout this I will be using light pressure to be able to build up the layers. This paper is, in the book, is the Amazon print paper, so it's a little bit thin and not very toothy. So I can struggle a little bit with these pencils, which is why I do a light pressure. There's a little bit of line art in the design, so I will be using that as well. Now I want to give it a beveled effect, so I'm going to be doing the middle sections of this bucket in the lightest colour. Now I'm going to be using the reddish medium brown, which in this set is called burnt sienna. Now, to get a beveled effect, you do the sides darker and the middle lighter. So I'm going to go over all of the sides up until slightly overlapping the middle I've just put down with this medium brown. And also anything that's overshadowed by the flowers will be darker as well, so I'll put those in. But that works in anyway because the flowers are at the edges. The inside of the bucket will be darker, so I'm just going to put in the medium brown. Colouring all the sections that are the bucket, which is a little bit difficult at times with all the flower petals, but I'm sure I'll work it out. I think that's a petal, to be honest. Right, go for the easier bits. Now I'm going to use my darkest brown, and I'm going to go along the edges and come in so far. Now if I see something that might be slightly raised, it looks like it might be slightly raised by the artwork, I'll stay out of those areas because I want to try as well to give a little bit of depth, and also I'm using the line art to help with that. So for instance, this here, I'm going to leave that lighter. It's just something to do by eye, really. Using the artwork to give you an idea how you can shade. I like this kind of artwork. Now I can adjust this later on. If I don't feel that I've got the dark in the right places, or I think it would look better extended with the light and such like, that's why I do a very light pressure, so I can change things, and I'm quite cautious about where I put my dark colours. So I think I will adjust this and put in more dark once I start working it out and the layers go down. So in the inside, the lower down in the bucket, the darker I'm going to go. And that's kind of like covered up with flowers, so that as well. And at the top, underneath the rim, I'll put a little bit of darkness as well. Just to give a little bit of depth, really. This is not necessarily coloured with light source. This is just to try and give something a bit of depth. Make it look slightly 3D. Well, they're the three colours I'm going to be using. And now I want to go over those colours and realise I hadn't coloured in the top of the bucket with the orange. So yes, I'm going to be going over those colours again, just to give more of an idea what I'm doing. Now I will be overlapping sections with each colour, so this lighter section I'll repeat. And I'll be starting to use these little bit of artwork and adapting it. So originally I went over that section in the light orange, but I'm going to leave it this time and go over those sections with the medium brown, just to give it a little bit more interest and texture. Now this section here, I'm going to go in there a little bit with the orange, just to make it look a little bit more different, and same over here. I'll be going over those with the medium brown. And this rib here that's going to be almost like it's lighter, I'm going to put a little bit of orange in there. Now I'm going back with my medium brown and overlapping the dark brown I put down earlier. And I'll also be overlapping slightly into the orange, and especially on parts where I think it might be slightly darker, so to give a bit of texture, I'll be using this medium brown. So working from the edges again, repeating what I did with the medium brown, and just where this line art is, gives the idea of texture, where the wood would be slightly darker and maybe we sort of like notches and such like. I'm going to go in there in the orange sections with my medium brown, just to darken it in slightly. Now I'm going to use my dark brown again, concentrating on the outside for now, and then I'll go back to the inside the bucket. And I'm going to be coming in from the edges, just to darken in those sections, but remembering where I decided to leave it lighter and going around those. So I hope that's easy to understand. It's just adjusting as you go along. I'm trying to do two things. I'm trying to make the edges of the bucket darker to give it a beveled effect, but also use some of the line art that's there to give a bit of texture. Now I'm going to go back to the inside of the bucket and repeat what I did earlier. Darker the furthest down it goes in the bucket, and the lighter medium brown for the top end. As well as just under the rim, a little bit darker. Now my medium brown. Now that's 2 layers of each of those colours for the wood sections of the bucket, and I hope you're getting an idea of how that's going to work out. Obviously it needs a lot more layers, so it's darker on the edges, coming in with the medium brown, and then the lightest orange in the middle, and using a little bit of dark and light around the line art to give a bit of depth. So I'm going to use, I'm going to do the rest of this bucket off camera, because all I'm doing is repeating what I've just shown, and then I'll come back to this. Now I've put another couple of layers down of each of those colours I was working on for the wood on this barrel, and then I did a blend using baby oil, and just a little bit of baby oil in, I put mine in an egg cup, a tiny wee bit on the end of a cotton bud, and I don't want too much with this paper being a little bit thin. I mean, I do put card behind it, but still, can be quite wet otherwise. And it's worked quite well. It's come out a nice textured colour, and there's enough depth between the dark and the light to give it that beveled effect. Now, I probably will do more layers for this, but it's just to give people an idea how it's coming together. I do think I need to go a bit darker, especially with the browns. And I just want to mention I got a new pencil sharpener, just a little handheld one. The Swordfish, I've never tried them before, and they're really nice. I get a good tip on them, very sharp. I go through a lot of pencil sharpeners. I mean, it's I think I must go through one every other month. It's just crazy, but I find it hard to find one that I like. I mean, some are better for my cheaper pencils, and some are better for my, artist grade pencils. And I'm struggling with my artist grade ones to find a good pencil sharpener that doesn't cost a lot of money. And these Swordfish are quite reasonable, only like £3 for two from Amazon, and they're lovely. So hopefully they won't get blunt too quickly, and they'll work really well with my artist grade pencils, because I need a sharp point. But it's get a sharp point where it doesn't break off. And with some of my pencil sharpeners, it doesn't get sharp enough, and I end up breaking the cores. So it can be a little bit of a struggle. So yes, that does need darkened in a little bit, but I just wanted to show folks how it's going. And what I find with the baby oil, which I like to use it as a cheap alternative to zest, the wax goes down a lot better after you've used it, so it'll go deeper easier. So yes, I've got a few more layers to do of that, but I want to just go on to doing the other sections on this bucket. I'm going to work on these sections, the binding around the bucket and the bucket handle. I'm going to be using a pale orange, almost like a peachy colour, 020. The orange I was using for the bucket for the light section, 017, and a reddish brown, 026. And again, if you don't need to be using these pencils, you can use similar colours in other brands. So I'm going to be doing where I think the highlighted sections will be first, with my lightest colour, which is this very pale peachy orange. So on the handle would be the highest point. And with the bands, it's going to be the same effect I was doing for the wood, as in the middle being lightest. Now I'm going to use the medium orange, and I'm going to darken in the edges of the bucket handle. Do those first. And then with the bands, they will be, as the main of the bucket was done, darkest at the edges coming towards the middle. And then the darkest colour I'm using for these bands and the handle, this reddish brown, I'm going to do just at the edges for the bands. This is my first rough layering. And the edges again for the bucket handle. So you're making the bucket handle darker so that when it goes towards the top part of the handle it gets light and it gives it again that beveled effect, and the same with the bands. Now there's some line art in this which I will use a little bit now for my next layering. So in the lighter sections I'm going to just use the medium orange to add a little bit of texture where the line art is. And I'm also going to use that orange to go over the darker sections for that highlight, just to highlight it a little bit, make it different for a bit of texture. Using the darkest brown again. Going over what I've just done, partly. I'm using my medium orange and repeating where I put the medium orange in originally. Come from the edges towards the middle, slightly overlapping into the light sections, but not too much. And then using my lightest colour again, this peachy pale orange, to go over where that was originally. So just repeating that, but also going over the darkened in sections with this line art. I'll use the medium orange for. I'm going to repeat what I did originally for the handle. So the lightest peachy orange at the top. Overlap them slightly with the medium orange. And covering the handle towards the edges. And the darkest reddish brown overlapping the medium orange and going over the edges, mostly just the edges, to give you that beveled effect. Now that is how I'm going to be doing the bands and the bucket handle. It needs a few more layers and a blend. But I hope you get an idea of I'm using this line art, and again doing darkest towards the lightest. Darkest from the edges and towards the lightest in the middle. Now I put 4 layers down of each of those colours, repeating what I did originally on video for the handle and these bands. And again, it probably needs a little bit more. But it's just to give an idea of how it looks just with 5 or 6 layers down. And everybody's different really. They have their own ideas of how many layers they want and how they want it to look, how deep the colours are. So I'm experimenting with doing more layers. So how my artwork is affected by that. So I just use baby oil to do a little bit of blending, and of course once I've done that, a bit like with the zest, I need to go in and put at least another layer down to darken it in. So I hope folks that anybody who's watching this has found this useful. I mean, I've enjoyed doing it. I'm enjoying trying different items to colour on video to hopefully make it interesting and useful to others, because when you're doing designs like these in books, and I'm stretching myself a little bit and doing scenes and indoor scenes and outdoor scenes, you get to try and colour all kinds of different things. So then you need to stretch your talents and your skills a little bit, which is always a good thing, I find. So yes, that is that bucket finished for this tutorial. Like I said, I will be working on it a little bit more off camera, and when I eventually get it put up, I'll put it up on my Facebook page and you can see it finished. So that's it for this tutorial. I'll say bye for now, and I'll see you again in the near future with another tutorial.